So who has governed India better? The NDA under Mr. Modi or the UP under Dr. Manmohan Singh? Is the Modi model real or is it hype? That's the big political face-off at the very outset. Joining me now is Shehzad Poonawalla, BJP spokesperson, and Pawan Khera of the Congress. Later we'll be joined by political analysts, but first the two practicing politicians. Shehzad Poonawalla, let's start with the data points since GDP figures are out today. UPA ruled 2004 to 5 to 2013-14, 8.36% average growth rate. NDA ruled 2014-15 to 21-22, 5.35%. Yes, pandemic for 2 years during the Modi rule, global financial crisis and the taper tantrums during Manmohan Singh. Purely looking at the numbers, is the hype around the Modi model justified or not? Your turn first.
First of all, I'm happy to have my dear friend Pawan ji on this panel, and I can assure you, Pawan ji, आपकी तपस्या में कोई कमी नहीं थी. हो सकता है परिवारवाद की समस्या जो है 8 वर्ष से अभी तक उसमें कोई बदलाव नहीं हुआ है, पर मैं आपको बताता हूं भारत में क्या-क्या बदला है. राजदीप जी, your figures seem to be taken from the old series. If you see by the new series, average rate of growth during the
No, 1 minute. He needs, but by the new series, actually, it will be even lower.
No. By
so
the
we
new
can
series,
go by that.
Sir, I also have my figures. I come with my data prepared. Its average growth during UPA tenure was 6.7%. Today it is 8.7%, where the GDP is the largest, fastest growing economy in the world. And if you temper this with the inflation, their average inflation CPI was 9% and it hit 10% 9 times. Today inflation, even after 2 world crises, Corona crisis and also the Ukraine-Russia crisis, we've maintained it at 5.5 to 6.5. Today it's touched 7.7, but apart from that, it is still remains in that zone below 8%.
On inflation, you're right. On GDP, you're not right, but go ahead.
So Rajdeep, how much money is left in your pocket doesn't just depend upon the growth, but also upon how much inflation there is. So let's figure that also out. Also, let us talk about hard facts. In the last 8 years, this government has spent 91 lakh crore rupees, whether it is on infrastructure building, capital expenditure and social sector, including subsidies. They spent 49 lakh crore rupees. We have given 80 crore people free rations for last 2 years. 3 crore houses were built by us, Pakka houses. 9 crore cylinders were given to the poor women. We put 9 crore tap water connections into people's houses. 50 crore people have got the benefit of Ayushman Bharat. That is the world's largest healthcare program. We've given the economy from fragile 5 to fastest 5. We've gone, inflation is under control even after 2 crises that is taking place. 17 crore bank accounts have been taken to 45 crores. That's financial inclusion. 190 crore vaccines have been administered. At that time, polio vaccine used to take 50 years to come. Today, 2 vaccines were developed. 190 crore doses, more than Europe and America, have been administered. They gave 60,000 crore rupees to farmers as a loan waiver. We've given 1.8 lakh crores to 11 crore farmers as Kisan Samman Nidhi. The MSP has been increased both in price and in procurement. I can give you some examples. 112% for wheat, 76% for masoor. They procured 3 lakh crores of wheat and rice during UPA 2. We procured about 8 lakh crores for wheat and rice during NDA 1. So that can show the difference. Power supply was 12 hours in the villages during that time. It's 22 hours during our time. IIT 16 by them, 23 by us. IIM 13 by them, 20 by us. Metro 5 cities by them, 18 cities by us. University 723 by them, 1043. That means a university a day was built by us. Ease of doing business 130 during their time, 63 ranking during our time. UPI transactions was just 1.7 crore rupees. During our time has come up to 84 trillion rupees. Forex reserves $250 billion during their time, $597 billion during our time. Airports 65 built by them in 60 years. We've added 100 more till 2024. Economy was $1.8 trillion made by them in 65 years. We've put it to at $3.1 trillion. That's $1.3 trillion added in the last 8 years. We've controlled extreme poverty by 12.83% by the World Bank report. Unicorns 4 during their time. Today it's 96. DBT 7,000 crores transferred by them, 7 lakh crores transferred by us, and therefore this is a delivery without corruption. That is the model. Seva without parting, even for 1 day, without holiday, even for 1 day. And Sushasan, as you can see, fastest growing economy in the world.
Woo!
Even economists have accepted that. Even economists that you read has accepted
Poonawalla
that.
has come to my studio with all his facts and figures. Some, as I said, will be challenged. Pawan Khera, the one figure though that does stand out for me, and he's right there, is on inflation. The UPA years were marked by double-digit inflation for a long period. The other figure that stands out for me is the various welfare schemes, the direct beneficiaries, purely in terms of scale, are much higher at the moment. The Prime Minister is not wrong when he says that 21,000 crores, for example, has been distributed through the Kisan Samman Nidhi alone. When I look at various other schemes like Ayushman Bharat, clearly the beneficiary schemes are being touted by this government as its great success. Your response?
Rajdeep, First of all, my friend Shehzad, thank you. You are concerned about my career. But unlike you wanted to be the Congress president, नहीं बन पाए, तो आपने तो पूरी विचारधारा ही बदल दी. मैं आप जैसा नहीं हूं, मैं अपनी तपस्या जारी रखूंगा और अपनी विचारधारा के साथ बेवफाई नहीं करूंगा. But thank you for your concern, and I am really concerned about you. I hope you become the BJP president after Mr. Nadda. I'll be very happy to see you as president of the BJP. क्योंकि यहां नहीं बन पाए, इसीलिए वहां गए थे, तो उम्मीद है वहां आपको बना दिया जाएगा. Anyway, so Rajdeep, you started with welfare schemes. Swachh Bharat Mission. Let's start with the #1 flagship scheme. Announced on 2019, 2nd October, Mr. Prime Minister announces that the entire country is ODF. What's the fact? What's the truth? What's the data? 25% rural households defecate in the open, in contrast with the claimed data of the Prime Minister. This is the Prime Minister of India lying on the 2nd of October. Mind you, गुजरात के गांधी के ही प्रदेश से आए हैं और गांधी जयंती पर झूठ बोल रहे हैं. आइए अब आप उज्ज्वला योजना पर. 10 crore they said they've given gas connections. Fine. In the last financial year, 90 lakh beneficiaries of this flagship scheme did not refill their cylinders, and over 1 crore beneficiaries refilled only once. Another data point. Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. This was launched in April 2015. The value of gross non-performing assets or bad loans under this Yojana had increased to rupees 34,090 crores during the last financial year, up 30.7% from the previous financial year, and nearly doubled from 2019. This is the truth of the Mudra Yojana. Now you come to the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. Now, my friend Shehzad was rattling away data. X number of accounts opened under this Yojana. Rajdeep, as on 8th December 2021, the number of zero balance accounts was 3.65 crores. Account है साहब, पैसा उसमें zero है. ये है इनके आंकड़ों की असलियत. Now you come to the Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana. This is a beautiful Yojana. I'll expose this Yojana. Now under this, the goal was to develop 3 model villages by each MP by March 2019 and then 5 more by 2024. The village adopted by Honorable Prime Minister. वहां जाकर जरा हालत शहजाद जी को साथ ले जाइएगा. I'll pay for the ticket. Just see, वो गांव आज भी गोद में है, उतरा नहीं है गोद से. And the village adoption scheme has been labeled as a flop, major failed scheme by the auditors. This is the reality of their Adarsh Gram Yojana. Smart City Mission, my friend mentioned about Smart City Mission. Of the 6,782 projects, Rajdeep, only 3,400 are complete in 100 cities. जून 2023 का डेडलाइन इन लोगों ने बढ़ा के दिया था. पहली डेडलाइन खत्म हो गई थी, नहीं कर पाए. June 2023 looks impossible because we are already in June 2022. हालत जाके देखिए स्मार्ट सिटीज की, मालूम पड़ जाएगी. अब इस मॉनसून में देख लीजिएगा क्या हालत होती है स्मार्ट सिटीज. बेटी बचाओ राजदीप. I want your special attention on this and your viewers' attention, because in this lies the story of the truth of Mr. Modi's bombastic publicity. Rajdeep, 78.91% of its money has been spent on advertising. Herein lies the truth of Mr. Modi. सिर्फ प्रचार और कुछ नहीं. 18 घंटे में 16 घंटे सोचते हैं कि प्रचार कैसे करें.
Okay, let Shehzad Poonawalla counter, because, you know, in a sense, both of you do not want to reveal. You don't want to look at the brighter side of the Modi government. He doesn't want to look at the darker side. I can point to youth unemployment falling rupee to Shehzad.
Right.
I can point to the direct benefits that have been achieved in terms of scale, in terms of delivery, in particular specific instances, whether free ration or Kisan Samman Nidhi or indeed Ayushman Bharat, to the Congress party. So that's the truth. You want to see the glasses half full and not the half empty.
No,
which is
Rajdeep.
why people say it's hype and it's prachar,
Rajdeep,
not reality.
Rajdeep,
I hope you give me more time after this.
Yes, I will. I'll come back to you. Let him.
Rajdeep, I don't see the glass as half full. I see the glass as half full with water and half full with air. And I am a realist. And therefore, I will accept whatever you say. But to ignore what has happened in the last 8 years.
Will you accept that youth unemployment is... Will you accept that youth unemployment, with all the figures that you rattled off, the fact that jobs have reached a new high?
Let me answer that question.
Yes. A new high, you don't look at...
Let me answer that particular question. Then let me cover all the other aspects Pawan has said. The unemployment figures, for instance, in the beginning of May was 7.88% as per the CMI data, although I don't think it's the most reliable. But let's take that data because everyone accepts that. It's come down to 7.23%. That means about 23 lakh jobs have been created in 1 month. But in Rajasthan, it's 20% for the last 1 year. It's about 20% for the last 1 year. If we have no solutions, please ask the opposition party, the leading opposition party, what solutions they have during this pandemic crisis that they are doing well in Rajasthan. But let me cover this. In the first 5 years of the NDA-1 government, please go back and check as per the EPFO and other data. We created over 1 crore jobs a year. That is a reality. That's a fact that can't be denied.
You promised 2 crore jobs a year.
Well,
you promised 2 crore jobs a year. That was your promise in 2014.
We keep our standards high and we deliver higher than what they've delivered in the last 10-15 years. Yet you are asking questions to us. That's good. But Beti Bachao.
Pawan, let him complete.
First time in the history of this country.
Pawan, I'll come back to you after he's completed.
Pawan, let him complete. For the first time in the history of this country, Rajdeep, you will say, stand testimony, you have a daughter. 1,000 se upar the female ratio has gone over the male ratio. For the first time in the history of this country, there's 1,020 women, 2,000 males. You disagree with that? Is that not a success of Beti Bachao? It's not a success in Haryana. Thirdly, let's talk about LPG coverage. He said LPG gas prices, etc. Today, the LPG coverage, which was less than 50% during the UPA, has gone up to 98%. More people are buying LPG cylinders. And yes, we during that time, even the subsidy was being paid by the consumers, by us, you and me, taxpayers only. That time, the average rate of the cylinder was 1,200 rupees. Today, it is 999 rupees for a 14.2 kg cylinder. Now, let's come to farmers. What have they done for farmers? They sat on the Swaminathan report. Today, there are 2,500 farmer suicides in Maharashtra in 2020, 2,489 farmer suicides in Maharashtra in 2021. They promised that they will give farm loan waiver to Rajasthan farmers. What have they done for Rajasthan farmers? They are killing farmers of tribal origin in Chhattisgarh.
Those farm suicides have carried out in BJP and Congress ruled state. Even when the Congress, BJP ruled Maharashtra also, there were farm suicides. But let him reply.
Just last figure.
You give him a direct question if you have for it.
Just two very quick points. One, look at something how India is transforming. Internet penetration was just 25 crores. Today it is 85 crore connections. Today all they have is the negativity. Sir, in my party, I can definitely become the BJP president someday if I work hard based on merit. But in your party, for the last 35 years, please tell me who's the president of your party. Okay. In my party, in the last 35 years, there have been 11 presidents.
Now let him
na kisi ka baap, na kisi ka beta.
Respond, Pawan Khera. He says, first of all, on the point of view of president, effectively suggesting you're a family-run party. He claims that his party is not run by a family. Number two, he claims, look at the various scaled up projects, digitization being a big one in the context of internet penetration. Respond.
Rajdeep, I am sure my friend Shehzad has a bone to pick with Mr. Scindia or Mr. Anurag Thakur or Dushyant or all those dynasts there. So it's between them. I don't want to get into that. But essentially, BJP is controlled by 12 families sitting in Reshimbagh, Nagpur. All those families are dynasts. इसी दिन शहजाद जी मिलिएगा, मैं आपको डेटा दूंगा आरएसएस कैसे 15 या 12 से 15 परिवारों के कंट्रोल में है पिछले 100 सालों से, लगभग 100 सालों से।
एक परिवार से तो निकलो।
अरे बीच में नहीं, प्लीज। शहजाद जी बोलते हैं कि फर्स्ट ईयर में 1 करोड़ नौकरियां दी थी इनके टेन्योर की। शहजाद जी, उस 1 साल में आप कांग्रेस में थे, जब से आप बीजेपी गए हैं वहां से नौकरियां मिलनी बंद हो गई। आपको क्या नौकरी दी उन्होंने, बाकी सबकी नौकरियां खत्म हो गई। तो नुकसान हुआ है आपके वहां जाने से बेरोजगारों को। सब्सिडाइज्ड सिलेंडर अंडर मनमोहन सिंह is being compared with unsubsidized cylinder under Modi. Now this is the way they mislead people. Rajdeep, now I have some data. Let's compare Manmohan Singh regime with Mr. Modi's regime. Domestic scooter sales under Mr. Manmohan Singh, 25.7%. Under Mr. Modi, 13.21%. Domestic tractor sale, 15.73 versus 4.49%. Incremental retail loans, 22.47% versus 19.92%. Passenger revenue of Indian Railways, 10.81% compared with Mr. Modi, 7.32%. Domestic commercial vehicle sales, 10.5% versus 9.74%. Consumption of finished steel, 7.18% compared with Mr. Modi, 5.18%. Cement production, 7.05%, 4.32%. Income tax growth, 17.53 under us, 16.85 under them. Corporation tax growth, 13.09 under them, 11.2 under us. Consumption of petroleum products, they have done slightly better than us, no doubt about that. Now, Rajdeep, this is the high frequency indicators that measure consumer sentiment under Manmohan Singh 10 years and under Mr. Modi's 8.5 years.
Can I though...
What's with the GDP figures then? Now tell me.
Can I therefore ask both of you to summarize what you believe the Modi model is? You start first, Pawan Khera. 30 seconds to you. What do you believe the Modi model is? And then I'll conclude with Shehzad Poonawalla. What is this Modi model? You can all throw figures. As I said, statistics, as it was once said, is like a bikini. They don't reveal as much as they hide. So we can go on hitting statistics at each other. The fact is, what is the Modi model?
This is the Modi model. This glass is not half full. It's this much water. Rest is air. ये हवा है मोदी मॉडल और कुछ नहीं है. आपने गुजरात मॉडल के सहारे 2014 जीता. चलिए गुजरात में. भूल जाइए कोविड को. चलिए अभी चलिए मेरे साथ. सारे इंडिकेटर्स पे मैं आपको दिखाता हूं गुजरात की असली हालत क्या है. और वहां यू कांट ब्लेम नेहरू जी ऑल्सो.
नहीं बट वाई सर वहां भी 25 सालों से बीजेपी सरकार रही है ना. यू आर राइट. नो बट सर द फैक्ट इज दे कीप विनिंग इलेक्शन. दे वन 26 आउट ऑफ 26 सीट्स इन गुजरात 2019 लोकसभा. इफ इट वाज सो बैड.
दैट्स अ वेरी गुड इंटरवेंशन. वेरी गुड पॉइंट. तो साहब 70 साल में 54 साल तो हम जीते हैं. इफ वी वर सो बैड वी वुडंट हैव वन इलेक्शंस. इफ इलेक्शंस आर अ क्राइटेरिया तो इनको बोलिए आज के बाद कांग्रेस की बुराई करना बंद कर दें. नेहरू जी का नाम लेना बंद कर दें. और ये परिवार का नाम लेना बंद कर दे, गांधी परिवार का. क्योंकि 70 साल में से 54 साल हम ही थे और हम भी चुनाव जीत कर ही आए थे. गुरुजी, आप आरएसएस की तरह नहीं है बिना चुनाव में बैठे रिमोट कंट्रोल लिए के मोहन भागवत नाम के आदमी यह तय करेंगे कि नड्डा जी के बाद शहजाद नहीं होंगे. शहजाद की मेरा चुनौती है आपको. शहजाद
Rajdeep, how long will you give me?
1 minute, I'll give you the same time.
Open challenge. Sorry, but thanks to your name, आप भाजपा के अध्यक्ष बनने के सपने छोड़ दीजिए. चले जाइए किसी रीजनल पार्टी में शायद बन जाएंगे.
Okay, you've made all your points. You put all your punches.
ये हमारे यहाँ नहीं होता है.
Pawan Khera, you put all your punches. Let him now respond. Shehzad Poonawalla, describe to me, since you get 1 full minute on the Modi model. 1 Modi model, 1 minute. Go ahead. What is the Modi model?
So first of all, when you win elections for 60 odd years, at that time the election system is also fine. The people of India are also fine. And for the last 8 years, you have been losing election after election. 30 elections are lost. At that time, you question the electoral system, you question the media, and you question the people of India itself. That too on foreign soil. So this was your double standard. Now, Rajdeep, you have to safeguard my time. My time is also time.
He didn't intervene.
This is the true face of the Congress. This is the true face of the Congress. This is the true face of the Congress. This is the true face of the Congress.
Producer, Pawan, you must let him finish. I have asked him a direct question. What is the Modi model? Reply to that.
Yeah, I will reply to the manner he has replied. I'll also reply in my manner.
Okay.
In Uttar Pradesh, not in power for almost half a century now, going towards half a century. In many states in Northeast, not in power for half a century. In Tamil Nadu, not in power for half a century. In Maharashtra, now no prospects of being in power for a lot of time. In states like other states also, you have been out of power for more than 30 years.
What
So
is your,
please,
what
Gujarat,
is
you have
the
been out
Modi
of power
model?
for 27
What
years.
is the Modi
One
model?
second, sir, 1 second. My point is that in those states that you have been out of power for 25 years and people have been voting us in, at that time, have they been voting based on some ulterior factors or because they are seeing Vikas being done? Point number one. Point number two, the Modi model is simply delivery without corruption. We used to hear of Scam India every day. Today it is Stand Up India and today it is Khelo India, and therefore even on a paimana like Tokyo Olympics, we have outperformed many other countries and we've done our best performance. This is deliverables without corruption, Seva all the time, and there was a VA during their time. That VA was vote bank appeasement. Today it is Vikas for all, and therefore it is housing for all, tap water connection for all, toilet for all, LPG for all, and it is bank accounts for all, and no corruption in any scheme that has been done by the Modi government.
Okay, so we've got two models. One which says it's a lot of hot air. Okay, the other one.
Dream.
Okay, let's leave it there, Pawan Khera.
प्रचार की बातें हैं.
Let's leave it there. Let's leave it there. We've had two models and I'm glad both of you have come up with your statistics and come well prepared. I appreciate that. Let's widen this. I'm going to be joined in a moment by Raj Chengappa, Editorial Director, Publishing in India Today. I'm also joined by Yogendra Yadav, President Swaraj India. He joins me, and Swapan Dasgupta, former Rajya Sabha MP and BJP member, joins me. Swapan Dasgupta, let's come to you first, because what do you see as the Modi model? What are the hits and what are the misses? If I were to ask you, tell me the three big hits and the three big misses in your view.
No, Rajdeep, I won't approach it in that way. I think if you're going to look at what might be called the Modi model, I think the most important thing is it's a vision of India, to think of India as something which is much greater in terms of aspiration, in terms of performance than what it has hitherto been. It is trying to get the full potential of India as far as possible and using the government as a facilitator for that. That's the essence, the broad ambition of what you call the Modi model. I'm not going to use the word Modi model. I think that's the Modi vision. And I think if you look at various things, whether you look at the architecture of the welfare projects, whether you look at foreign policy, whether you look at other economic initiatives, you will find that all of these are tailored, A, for the long term, B, to make it transparent, and C, to ensure that it reaches every section of society. Today, when the Prime Minister talks about ensuring that all the benefits of the programs reach 100%, it's an assumption, and I think quite rightly so, that there are still sections of the population which are uncovered, which are not completely covered by this. So at every point, the idea is that you penetrate more and more and ensure that nobody gets left out, and that the standards of living of Indian people are brought up gradually in every possible way, and that everybody gets that necessary elbow room, whether it's through toilets, whether it's through drinking tap water and other housing, so that you get that elbow room, so that your full potential of an individual or of families can be fully developed. That's what I think is what the Modi aspiration is, what's what I think the Modi vision is.
Yogendra Yadav, you want to respond to what you just heard from Swapan Dasgupta, that the model is aimed, if I may use the word model, at raising the standard of living for all, and thereby, according to Swapan Dasgupta, the welfare schemes in particular would be seen as a representation of this Modi model.
Rajdeep, to my mind, that's not the model. That's actually the label or the wrapping on the model. I think Mr. Modi must be credited with one thing. For the first time, probably in the country, ever since independence, governance, development, economic policy, everything has been absolutely fully aligned with politics, with the aim of electoral victory. So it's a political model. What is the model? I don't think it's a model where there is absolutely nothing being done. This is a model where the government very carefully identifies a few things, a few deliverables that is connected to the electoral constituency. Those few things the government does put effort to deliver. They could be tiny, they could be tinier than the previous regimes, but that doesn't matter. You focus on a few things, you put all your energies to deliver them, you put even more energies in communicating it, and you put even greater effort than in politically consolidating it. So there are three elements to it. One, some targeted welfare schemes. Two, enormous publicity, communication, media control. Three, divisive politics to ensure that it trumps and that it elides all other things that may be happening. Deaths that are happening, miseries that are taking place, people who are sinking, unemployment, now inflation, all other things can be pushed to the dark. And above all, what can be pushed to the dark is some people doing enormously well. Today, Mr. Modi spoke about Garib Kalyan. I thought there are two people whose Garib Kalyan has been done enormously well in the last 2 years or so. When COVID began, at the beginning of the pandemic, Mr. Ambani's total wealth was 2.6 lakh crore. Today it stands at 7.6 lakh crores, just in about 2 years' time. Mr. Adani was not even 1 lakh crore rupees when it began. He was about 60,000 crore rupees. Today, believe it or not, he's 8.2 lakh crore rupees, 14-fold increase. Now, that is what we don't want to talk about, but that is essentially a part of the Modi model. It's a political economy model. Okay. It is not merely a governance model.
Interestingly, to get two fascinating perspectives to this, is there a middle ground? Raj Chengappa, you've just brought out the latest India Today, the challenges ahead, 3 years of Modi 2.0. In a sense, is this therefore a model or a government still in the making where the record is mixed and it depends on what you cherry pick to decide on whether it's been effective or not?
Well, I mean, I agree with Chopin on some fronts and Yogendra on the other. Welfarism has certainly been his hallmark, and we've seen that right through both the first term and the second term.
We could also talk of rising inequalities, and we could talk of
yes,
welfarism.
I mean, certainly. If you look at security and national security, he certainly has been bold in a lot of things. So I would characterize the government as being efficient. If you see DBT and also, eliminating corruption and things, right? There's been a great deal of efficiency in terms of delivery on a lot of the schemes that's there. And overall, you get a sense that he thinks big, he's bold, he's decisive in what he takes. So there is a model that is emerging. It's still work in progress because he's in his 8th year that's there. And let's also, let's not forget that in the second term, it has been, any prime minister would have found it very difficult to manage the challenges that came. And they came in one after another, whether it was COVID, lives and livelihood involved, and therefore the economy had to be dealt with. Then if you take a look at the external threats, China as well as Russia and the Ukraine war, each brought its own set of problems that was there. I think it took all of Mr. Modi's experience to deal with each of them. He made his mistakes, his government made the mistakes. You could see initially COVID, you had the lockdown and the second wave, both lockdown too stringent, it hurt the economy more. And the second wave, we saw the lack of oxygen. But he learned from those mistakes and very quickly recovered. The way the vaccine research progressed, the fact that today we have almost 1.9 billion individuals vaccinated, that's tremendous credit, which even President Biden talked about. Then you take a look at China and Russia, take a look at the way he handled, put national interests right on top, was firm with China. Everybody could have criticized him. Yes, there was an ingression that happened, but the fact that he dealt with it firmly, and even in Russia, a delicate balancing act, in many senses, he's maintained the neutrality, kept India's national interests in mind. So overall, if you see, there are issues that he now faces. Inflation is certainly a serious problem. Unemployment and jobs. Economy, I believe, is one of the areas he has to focus on. To his credit, he's also been radical in his second term. If you look at the thrust towards privatization that he's taken, whether it is the farm laws which failed for other reasons, but it was certainly a move in the right direction. Take a look at PSUs, public sector units, the fact that LIC IPO has happened, as well as Air India that's there. So if you see that, and the fact that departments, holy cows like the space and atomic energy was open for privatization, he, I think, is moving, and quite rightly, from welfareism to wealth in some senses. And that wealth, what Yogendra was saying about the two individuals, that wealth has to be for all.
So in a way, therefore, you're saying you sense signs of leadership, signs of having taken on those challenges, may have made a few mistakes at times, particularly in the early years, early months, let's say, of COVID, but recovered and learned from mistakes. Okay, that's one middle ground in a way. I come back to you, Swapan Dasgupta. While you point out you believe that the Modi model has in a way redefined the way government and governance is done, is there something that you would accept from what Yogendra Yadav points out, a weakness in the system, the cronyism that is accused, that the Modi government is accused of, favoring particular individuals, the manner in which decisions that some would say are bold and risk-taking, others would say are disruptive and cause chaos in the system, demonetization an example? Would you say there are areas that need to be looked at if we look ahead?
Well, I think a couple of things. Firstly, I agree with Yogendra Yadav that when he said this is an entire system of political economy, I think there's no getting away from the fact that the management of the economy, the management of welfare is inextricably linked with the larger political calculations of this thing. And if you say that Modi has deliberately targeted a few issues rather than take everything, I think that's also a fair point. But I think if you take on the challenges of housing for all, if you take on the challenges of drinking water for all, I think it's, these are formidable issues. And if you can manage, and you've already managed to get electricity for all. So I think regardless of the fact that only a few issues are linked, these issues are considerable in their scope. And I think they make a qualitative difference to the lives of ordinary individuals.
You agree, for example, if I may just interject, when you say electricity for all, let's be clear, the Manmohan Singh years were the years when electrification picked up.
The point is that the last mile...
No, I'm saying, is it a continuum of, there seems to be a tendency to discount what happened before 2014.
I'm very glad that you feel that Manmohan Singh should also get the credit. I think not only Manmohan Singh, but I think right from Jawaharlal Nehru, and everybody who started giving the process of electricity should also take the credit. And I think I'm not sort of taking it away. But to think of that as a particular target, to make sure that the task is completed in every way, is, I think, a political decision which was taken by the Narendra Modi government, and it was completed. So I'm not taking away any of the credit of Manmohan Singh. I'm not taking away credit of Deve Gowda or Inder Gujral or anyone, or Rajiv Gandhi or Indira Gandhi. All that is there. Now there comes the question, which I think has been made a thing about the accrual of wealth of two industrial groups. Now, I think you can say that, is it the job of the state to be the agency of equitable redistribution, as it was under the bad old days of socialism? Now, I think, you can point out that why has Ambani and Adani succeeded disproportionately over, say, the Tatas or, say, one of the Birla groups. Now, I mean, these are legitimate questions which you can talk about within business models. But I think the larger question, which I think needs to be taken, that for the first time in India, after a very, very long period, or if ever, entrepreneurship is not regarded as a dirty word. It's not regarded as a swear word. It is not any longer treated as a pejorative thing. And entrepreneurship is something which is promoted for everybody, to build up Indian companies, to build up Indian brands, to build up this Make in India, to allow for capacity building in India. Within that, I think these are seen as legitimate aspirations of India. So if you say that this is pro-business, yes, of course it's pro-business. But what's wrong with being pro-business?
Many would say, in fact, many would say
I'm saying that you are, and the fact that today we don't have 97% taxation, we have much more modest taxation rates in this country, which has resulted in a less accrual of what is called the parallel economy. All these are realities.
Okay.
So
many would say this is again a continuum. It's not as if again, post 1991, it's not as if entrepreneurship was not being facilitated. It's been a gradual process.
You are saying that, of course, it's a continuum. Of course, everything in India is a continuum. The state in India is a continuum. The republic is a continuum.
Okay.
Everything is. But it requires an exercise of political will, determination, and focus to be able to get that thing moving in the right direction. I think for all the credit which can be given to Manmohan Singh and earlier, I think you will not deny that somewhere along the way, the UPA too lost focus. And it got mired in a lot of scandals which proved detrimental for delivery projects. And that some of the design of these were not quite sufficient. And you'll also agree that under Modi, technology has been taken to another level. And has been used for the benefit.
Can I let Yogendra Yadav respond? Yogendra Yadav, there'll be the sense that when, in a way, you will be seen today as a pessimist, someone who sees the glass as half empty, even on farm laws, which was seen by many as an issue that required dialogue. Eventually it ended up in confrontation. Is that part of the problem, you think, with this Modi model, that it leads to confrontation because the individual itself personalizes his politics and therefore tends to also end up creating adversaries and enemies, center versus state, farmers versus center? Is that, to your mind, a weakness of this system?
That is, Rajdeep, but let me focus on the real big issue. And let me begin by agreeing with Sopan. It is true that towards the end, UPA ran aground. High inflation, extreme perceptions of corruption, and everything that it had achieved in economic terms was wiped out from public memory. That's why Mr. Modi came. And he came with a lot of hope. I've never been a part of his fan club, but I must say that a very large majority of this country, even those who did not vote for Mr. Modi, thought at last the country would have stable politics, strong leader, big decisions, and so on. And what do we have, Rajdeep, after 8 years? You've been excessively kind, may I say. You said some mistakes have been made. Swapan Dasgupta is educated and thinking person, unlike many other persons in his party. Tell me, Swapan, demonetization, would this not be taught in textbooks of economics for years to come as a model of how not to fiddle with a good economy? On the issue of what happened in during the COVID lockdown, Rajdeep, you have run footage, you have seen it. Tell me, would it not count as one of the most thoughtless and one of the most heartless decisions taken by any government? Remember, we did not have this kind of a footage that we saw in India of migrant labor. That footage did not come from Kenya, Ghana, any other state in Africa, the poorest of poor in this country. All that shameful footage came from India. Talk about the deaths during COVID. Is it not a fact that the proportion of people who died is amazingly, astonishingly, embarrassingly higher than the government says, higher than what the kind of discrepancy you have in all other parts of the world? And Raj Jengappa, you know international relations and national security infinitely more than I do. You've done it for years and years. Please tell me, when was the last time after 1962 that an Indian government ceded so much of its territory to China? Please tell me, Raj Jengappa, if Congress had done this during the regime, how would the BJP have reacted? How would the country have reacted? So when we say some mistakes, I'm afraid we are being unduly kind. What we are witnessing, and Raj was quite right, Mr. Modi has big ideas. I think big ideas also need to be sane ideas. Otherwise you run the risk of actually running this country aground. On the economy, I dare say we have witnessed one of the most incompetent government for a rising and complex and large economy like this. Enormous injustice has been done to it, and let us not be overly kind to what has happened here.
Very strong words there, but two perspectives. Let me give you one more chance to find that middle ground. If I were to look ahead, I know 8 years is perhaps, some would say too little to look at legacy, but I come back to it. If you were to look at hits and misses. The big hit, the big miss as we end.
Well, I think the big hit was, it's a controversial statement, but abrogation of Article 370. And I'm saying that because it is, again...
but the jury is still out whether it's actually going to change the face of the Kashmir Valley. My point is, would you therefore say the ability to take big risks, some of which may...
I'm saying, when you look at decisions, you compare prime ministers across, since you asked that question, what would you remember Narasimha Rao about? You would remember him for reforms, and on the other front, Babri Masjid, the demolition of it.
Yes.
Look at Vajpayee. What would you think of it? Nuclear tests?
Yes.
And the Kargil war, and the failure was Lahore. Right?
Some would say the failure to act on Gujarat, but that's another contestable issue on another day.
Take Dr. Manmohan Singh. You would say economic prosperity during that first phase that was there. A lot of welfareism. Narega was started under his.
Yes.
I would be biased and I'd say the nuclear deal. And the failure was corruption. Yes. And we go a little back, Indira Gandhi, nuclear test, Bangladesh war, emergency, and this. And I'll add one more. Sorry?
Fascinating, actually.
Yeah. But if you take a look at Mr. Modi, right? Demonetization certainly on the negatives, right? He could have handled that far better. But if you take a look at, and in terms of achievements, welfareism to a height that none of the others had done, they had started it, but in terms of delivery,
so scaling up welfareism.
Certainly a big achievement. I would put Kashmir in that, in terms of achievements, as part of that, because
digitization?
No, it's a game changer. I'm just talking. It's
yes,
a game.
Okay.
See, efficiency, I'd bring digitization, technology would come under efficiency, right? But Kashmir is a game changer when it comes to that. So why I'm saying that is it's altered the status quo. If you take a look at the 1974 test, which was also, 1974 nuclear test was a game changer, it changed the status quo when Mrs. Gandhi did that. So in that sense, this could be one of his crowning achievements that's there. And let's not forget that he's still in his 8th year. He needs to focus on the economy. And I think looking ahead, there are two things. First of all, if he has to focus on anything, I'd say the economy, the economy, the economy. Second is implementation. There are so many schemes that has been there. Delivery of that is critical. And third, I think very, very importantly, is that people want prosperity. They want income. They don't want divisiveness. They want unity. I think that's something he needs to focus on.
In fact, we didn't actually look at that issue of social harmony. We can maybe have another debate and get all three of you to look at that issue. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas. Has that been achieved or not? I want to give actually, why not? I'll give it a minute more. We're going. Swapan Dasgupta, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas. Has that been achieved or not?
Well, I think nothing is ever fully achieved. Everything is work in progress. But I think...
Are we a more inclusive India today than we were 8 years ago?
What I think is very, very important to know is that the sense of belonging, the sense of proprietorship of the people, ownership of the people to the government, of government programs, is now at a stupendously high level. So, Sabka Saath and Sabka Vikas and Sabka Vishwas, in various ways, have been actually demonstrated on the ground. And I think today, for the first time, we have governmental schemes, governmental initiatives, which actually invite popular participation, and where monitoring is actually done not only through technology, but also through a larger political process. And I think, to my mind, that is something which we hadn't ever seen in India before. So to that extent, I would say that Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas is very much. And if you're talking about social harmony, etc., I don't think there's any of these schemes which suggest that any section of the population is being willfully kept out on the strength of their identity or anything else. So, if there are problems of social harmony, these are historical issues. Some of these have come and some of them go. But nothing in the government's state action would suggest that there is any discriminatory action which is taken. Everyone is taken along. Whether they vote for the government, whether they vote for the BJP or not is another matter altogether. A considerable number of them do. And I think that's really one of the biggest problems.
I have exactly a minute.
The opposition have is that they, despite all their naysaying things, haven't been able to persuade people that Mr. Modi is a liability, because to most people, Mr. Modi seems one of the best things after sliced bread that has come about in this country.
You know, we'll discuss the state of the opposition on another day, but I'll give you one final minute and make it a minute, Yogendra Yadav. Sabka saath, sabka vikas, sabka vishwas. In your view, where is the weakness there? Mr. Modi says, when I give a gas cylinder, I give it to everyone. I don't discriminate between Hindus and Muslims on a gas cylinder.
Rajdeep, here is a regime where the definition of sabka clearly has changed. Sabka minus something. Problems of social harmony must be the biggest euphemism ever used. Please remember, we are in a country right now in the middle of a hate campaign, in the middle of a situation where minorities have been reduced to second-rate citizenship, in the middle of something where right under the nose of the central government, hate speeches are being given, people are being lynched, belonging to minority has become a crime in this country, where institutions are being dismantled. That, of course, is not the focus of our debate today. But when Raj Chengappa says Kashmir is a game changer, I agree, Raj Chengappa, but please ask another question. Game changer for good or for the worse?
You know,
I just say,
yes,
history will tell.
History will tell us. On Kashmir, I think, let's press the pause button. It's work in progress, much as Mr. Modi also may be work in progress.
I agree. History will tell.
You know, by all accounts, as of today, he appears in pole position to win 2024, which would mean that he could complete 3 terms, 3 consecutive terms. No one has done that since Jawaharlal Nehru, so he could still be work in progress. It's been fascinating having 3 erudite minds speaking without shouting at each other. Maybe we finally found a way of getting all 3 of you maybe once a month to just raise the bar when it comes to television debates. But really, it's been interesting to have a debate on the Modi model without the usual screaming and shouting at each other. Maybe that's the way we need to move forward, with a dialogue and assess people objectively, including someone who is seen by many as a polarizing figure like Prime Minister Modi. For now, it's Modi at 8. Swapan Das Gupta, Yogendra Yadav, Raj Chengappa, appreciate all of you joining us. To our viewers also, maybe this is the way we can take television forward, by bringing in more cerebral voices.